So first off, for those who don't know, Mouthwashing is a first-person, non-linear indie adventure horror game. I know, a lot of words, but really, this game is unlike any game I've ever seen played before, so those titles really don't do it justice. Let me set the scene. We are a crew of 5 employees of this company, Pony Express, and we are one of the last manned freight ships before they fully automate the process. Oh, and this is in space. The crew consists of Curly the captain, Jimmy the co-pilot, Swansea the mechanic, and Anya the nurse, and Daisuke, the newly hired intern. For a majority of this game, we play as Jimmy, the co-pilot, and how he navigates being the new captain after an accident with the ship causes Curly the captain to be incapacitated. Now, this game has a lot of complex symbolism, deep philosophical topics, and intense interpersonal relationships. But we're going to be talking about ponies. Specifically this pony, Polly. The figurehead for the company pulling the strings on the Tulpar, Pony Express, the shipping company with a 70% success rate. Now, this video is not a deep dive into the game's lore or story. This is a purely theory video. So if you'd like a story video, subscribe because it's coming soon. Now let's get back to the video. From the beginning of this game, we can see something strange about this company. From hallucinations of cartoon horses, to malpractice, and inexperienced workers. But at least they get a psychological evaluation every month that just asks questions on how efficient they've been at work. Oh, and that one question about horses. So far, we see that the Pony Express's main goal is to make as much money as possible. So basically that means cut as many corners as possible. For example, instead of hiring an onboard doctor or registered nurse, they gave a failed medical school student a certification to do nursing work exclusively on Pony Express property. And I'm not being a hater on Anya's medical skills because she was still able to keep Curly alive after the accident. But also, she still wasn't really qualified no matter how you look at it. Not to mention that the only reason Jimmy was co-pilot was due to Curly the captain being best buds with him. Good old-fashioned nepotism. And bringing the intern Daisuke, who had no experience, on board when the ship was only stocked and prepared for 4 people, not 5. So this means that they had limited resources and only had 4 cryogenic pods. This was a very neglectful decision, especially for a haul that was supposed to take upwards of a year. Not to mention the mental strain this put onto the employees, from becoming disillusioned to getting their pay docked for every little mistake they make. Some examples are resting for more than 5 hours, which includes leisure time, not just sleep. Even when you're, let's say, a mechanic and you finished all your work for the day, you were still required to continue working until your rest time. If you didn't assist with others' work, then you and your crew would get collective punishment. And if you managed to get hurt on the job, well, you better cough up that dough because I can assure you Pony Express is not paying for that. You have a late delivery? Well, your paycheck is getting lost in the mail because it is your responsibility if the shipment gets there on time. So in trying to figure out which company this is based on to get some clues into what the devs might have been thinking while making the game, I feel like the obvious answer seems to be Amazon. I mean, the history of extreme productivity quotas, workers reported being tracked every second with rate expectations that push them to move hundreds of packages an hour. If they fall behind or take too many breaks, they risk getting written up or fired. Drivers often report impossible delivery schedules, forcing them to skip meals and even relieve themselves in bottles or bags. Some Amazon employees have even spoken about the company's surveillance being extreme in some cases, by tracking, let's say, a driver in an Amazon truck. If they take their eyes off the road, they start yawning, and even their overall behavior gets tracked and noted. This seems to be a theme in Mouthwashing, with the constant talks of being docked pay for little mistakes, the constant eye imagery, and the imagery of the blind horse that's sensitive to noise and movement, blind to the emotions and experiences of the employee, but sensitive to what affects the Pony Express's company's bottom dollar. So it seems like a lot of these things match consistently with Amazon. Little rest and or breaks, extreme working conditions, and obtrusive surveillance. But I don't know if this is it. Let's look at the inconsistencies. 1. Amazon rarely does full truckload freight shipments of one specific item like we see in Mouthwashing. 2. Pony Express is a very recognizable brand with the horse imagery and their mascot Polly. Now I was going to say Amazon doesn't have a mascot, but apparently they do, and it's named Pecky. Anyway, the biggest one is this company is not successful. We learn early in the game that the Pony Express is going bankrupt because of the greater automation and that the need for manned freight ships is no longer necessary. And we know Amazon is nowhere near bankruptcy. For 2024, Amazon brought in roughly $638 billion in revenue and nearly $60 billion in net profits. Amazon is also heavily working on automation in the delivery space. They've deployed over 1 million robots globally to support tasks like sorting, lifting, and carrying items across more than 300 facilities. So if anything, Amazon is the direct competitor of a future manned space delivery company, so this definitely takes Amazon out of the running for the base of the Pony Express. Well, we could go with a generic shipping company like UPS, but they are also too successful. Or a global shipping giant like APMM, but they do container shipping, and that doesn't seem consistent with Pony Express either. Again, super successful. But I think the answer is way more obvious than you'd think. Let's take a trip back to 1860s in St. Joseph, Missouri. There was a freight and logistics company founded by 3 businessmen, Russell, Majors, and Waddle, called the Pony Express. And the correlation is not just in the name. Both companies went bankrupt due to new automation. The Pony Express and Mouthwashing is due to the freight companies getting automated, as we know. The real-life Pony Express went bankrupt due to low profit, and what put the nail in the coffin? The Transcontinental Telegraph. 2 days after its completion, the Pony Express was out of business. Number 2. The cost of sustaining living creatures was both of their downfalls. Both companies had to spend massive amounts of money sustaining, housing, and protecting the horses and people respectively. Number 3. The workplace conditions were eerily similar. In Mouthwashing, we had poor medical support, long hours with little rest, and hiring inexperienced workers. The real Pony Express had all that and more. They would hire teenagers around the age of 14 because they were lighter for the horses to carry long distances. Preferably orphans, so they had no connections because the working environment was that bad. So they were often attacked by bandits, and there was many casualties due to these attacks. And number 4, the mental strain. Many people described working for the Pony Express as the loneliest job on earth, a sentiment shared by the crew of the Tulpar and Mouthwashing. So what can we know about the story with the added context of it being based on the real Pony Express? Based on my best guess, I think this means that the Tulpar will be found by another freight company. The reason? Well, right after the real Pony Express went under, the government contract for the route from St. Joseph to Sacramento was given to Overland Mail Company, which was mostly owned by Wells Fargo. Now, in 2025, Wells Fargo is mostly owned by Vanguard. As we talked about earlier, these automated shipping companies are probably a commentary on Amazon, and Vanguard is the largest institutional investor of Amazon. So in short, Vanguard owns a majority of Wells Fargo, Vanguard owns a big stake in Amazon, and the biggest shipping company connected to both is Amazon. So let's say this is true, that these automated shipping companies are taking over the route that the Pony Express previously had, just as Overland Mail Company did previously. Overland also took the Pony Express's freight routes, many of the relay stations, and much of the infrastructure. So most likely, Amazon/Overland would take over the Tulpar and repurpose it, and in doing so, find Curly. That's when the events of The Last One and Then Another, How Fish Is Made DLC happen. Curly going into a psychotic breakdown after he is found. Okay, so this seems like it may be a stretch, but his dialogue backs this up. First, he says, it's easy to get on this boat when you have to. You say to yourself, this is just temporary, just until I get what I need. Got bigger things planned. Then suddenly you're 1 year in, 5 years, 10. First I couldn't stand the constant noise. Now I can't sleep without it. A lot of things can't follow you out here, but it also means the outside world moves on without you. You won't even notice until it's too late. Easy to get on, hard to leave. Now these lines seem to speak on his time in the Tulpar, either as a captain and he's speaking on how his whole life experience was taken from him while being stuck on a ship for nothing, or he is speaking on his experience in the stasis chamber, with the buzz of electronics on the ship waiting to be saved for 1, 5, 10 years until he eventually does get found by the automated freight company, or reported to the proper recovery team to get Curly found. Once he is found, he can't differentiate between people talking to him and his memories, like we see with the mouthwash and the mouthwash infected fish in the DLC. And he doesn't move his mouth properly when he's speaking, almost like this is in his mind, and reminiscent of this scene in Mouthwashing, which is either in Curly's mind, but more likely in Jimmy's mind. And this is a strange theory, but it would answer a lot of the missing pieces of the story of the Tulpar and Pony Express as a whole.